When I first started doing the show with Theory, like there was definitely an intimidation factor when I first got in there. But then like, dude, within the first episode, we just found it. And I think that's one of those things that like, we just got lucky. Like, that's not me trying hard, that's not you trying hard. It's just, we were the right guys to do the show together.
Fulfill your destiny. TheorySabers.com.
Oh, you bought a sword?
Yeah, I actually bought it for Theory for his birthday, so there you go.
Thanks, dude.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Before this, we were hanging out. He got me like a bunch of sweaters and shirts. And
It's crazy that this worked out because, you know, it's his birthday. I live like an hour and a half away. You know, we did the reunion show, what was it, 2 weeks ago now?
yeah,
It's just wild how it all happened, and I'm very grateful that it happened. I'm glad to be here in person doing another Nerd Theory with you, man. So serendipitous and cool and fun. So thank you for inviting me, and happy freaking birthday, man.
Thank you, dude.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. Obviously, this is very special for us because it's like our first one that we. And today, like we just met, literally like an hour and a half ago.
Nerd Theory history.
Yeah, a little bit.
What I was thinking about on the drive over here was that'll be the first time that the rumor mill gets codified. Meaning, like right now, we're hearing all these rumors. We're hearing all, you know, there's like 6 Ray movies. There's like, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on. This will be the first time that they come out on stage and actually announce it and actually tell us what's going on.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, what's your dream scenario? Like is there something that could happen next month? Because I have mine, but I want to know yours. Do you have like a dream scenario of what could happen at Celebration that would get you excited about Star Wars again?
I think a shit ton of different things have to happen. So like obviously, you know, Kathy, I think really needs to step down, or at least, you know, someone else needs to take over. But that's the fear I have, is like, who's gonna take over?
Yeah.
And we've talked about this so much online. You know, are we gonna get someone that's just the same thing? You know, and what's up with Dave Filoni? Like, I used to be a huge fan of his, but where's his direction now? Like, will he be kind of, you know, his chains will be broken once she's gone? Or is he just gonna continue down this path of just something that was maybe different from George? That's really like what I think would be the first big thing, is like she full on retiring.
Yep.
Besides that, we need someone that has, I think, real vision, and someone that just really respects what George did.
Yeah.
Which we've talked about
Yeah.
until the cows come home. You know, and it's so simple, yet it's so difficult, it feels like. And I've said this before, but Stuart Beattie, who wrote the original trilogy for the Obi-Wan Kenobi movies, that man gets it. Like, his treatment, his script I think it would have inspired all of us, and it felt very much like George wrote it. They obviously can hire the right people, and then they just fire them. So if they could just, you know, maybe like hire them, keep them, and then, you know, run with that, I think that'd be really good. But the future of Star Wars, I mean, it just comes down to, like you said, Celebration. You know, what are we going to have announced?
Yeah.
Who's going to be in control?
Yep. If it's John, I'm excited. That would be, for me, a huge win. And I would feel very good about that. Partially because I think John, he doesn't just get Star Wars, and he doesn't just get storytelling, and he's really brilliant at that, but he's also been, from what I've heard, at odds with a lot of the stuff that Kathy has done, and he sees it very differently. We have never heard that publicly spoken. Everybody toes a line, you know, and they're company people, and I get it, but I've heard that person, I believe that. I'm not so sure about Dave. What's the deal here? It's just because it feels like he's A, defended her, and B, not really shown any sign of being critical of where the brand is at, right? So if it's John and Dave, hallelujah. Yeah. I would feel so good about that. But then I have major questions and concerns. If it's Carrie Beck, I'm not thrilled.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm not thrilled, just because I think she represents more of the same. You know, frankly. Yeah. There's still a possibility, outside chance it would be Kevin Feige. I actually think that would be good, but I don't know how that makes sense with everything he's doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the Kathy piece is huge. It, again, might not actually get resolved at Celebration, but if it does, that would be great. And you know, it would be great to follow up and do something with you about that too.
Yeah.
And then the questions are, what are they going to announce for the movies? And the thing that's weird about that, and we all know, is even what they announce is not necessarily what will come, but it is at the very least what they are signaling to us as far as, hey, this is what we think you, the fans, would want. You know, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Mando Grogu too, and maybe if you guys had questions about that. But yeah, what are the next Star Wars movies, right? Because 2 years ago at Celebration, they announced Mangold's movie, Filoni's movie, and then the Charmin Obed Chinoy movie.
Right.
John's Mando Grogu movie was not even on that list. Neither were the 16 Rey movies that they're supposedly making.
Yeah.
So they're gonna hopefully come out and show us what the plan is. So between the Kathy piece and between the piece of the movies being announced, I need to see what that looks like before I can get enthusiastic. You know what I mean? Like, I want to be enthusiastic about Star Wars.
Yeah, me too.
But
I think all of us do, right? That's why we're here.
Yeah.
That's why I started the channel.
Yeah.
And it's just deviated, you know. But as much as they keep, you know, straying away, I'm very hopeful. I do believe that the right person can come along, guy or girl, and just make, you know, stuff that we all enjoy and inspire us at the end of the day. But until they do that, you know, we're focused on our channels. We're always still going to be there, and we want to bring the show back as well, and have a bit of a different spin on it with talking about everything to do with, you know, movies and pop culture in general, which is kind of what the show turned into after hour 4 or 5.
I'm potentially at a worse spot than you were with Star Wars right now.
Yeah, you were saying this.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's like, it's very difficult for me because, you know, I had a meeting yesterday with some people on my team, and they were asking about Andor, and I was like, I'm not covering that show, you know what I mean?
What do you guys want to see? Maul?
I don't think it's a matter of who is coming next. Who's already here? You two are already here. They are already here. I'm already here. Some of the best stories that come from Star Wars come from fans who got licensed, who got comic books, who got to work. Your Vader series, you got to work.
Yeah.
I put on this cosplay, I got to work. At the end of the day, the people that are gonna save Star Wars is gonna be people that were raised on Star Wars. And I feel like that's kind of our purpose. That's what brought us to this very moment. So it's not a matter of who's in the shadows waiting to take over. It's we're here to pick up the pieces to show we're done waiting.
I like that,
Yeah. It hits a little harder when Maul says it, hey?
Beautiful.
I would like to see something Darth Bane or something when there was the Jedi and Sith Wars, like,
Yeah.
that would be really cool.
It would be. And I used to be like, oh, I wish they would do this, I wish they would do that, but now I'm just like, okay, how are they going to, if they do, how will it turn out kind of thing, you know? So that's kind of what I'm skeptical of now. But, you know, speaking of Vader, I truly believe that will be a big shift in Hollywood. Confident enough to say that just what we're doing is something that is truly next level. I mean, I haven't seen, it looks better than the Old Republic cinematics. The level of emotion, the things that we're putting in there, the technology, it's really going to be groundbreaking. I truly believe it, and I think you'll all get a real kick out of it. When you watch it, you're gonna be like,
When's it dropping?
in the fall. In the fall. So actually, March, it's April, you'll have the first trailer finally. I'm very excited. I truly believe that once that is out, a lot of fans will be like, oh, this is possible to make.
Yeah.
And if a fan could make this, then imagine, you know, our budget for that episode 2 and 3 is $1 million, which is now going over constantly.
Yeah.
As movies do. Unfortunately, theorysavers.com. Okay, all right? But I believe in it, and I think it's going to be really worth it for all of you guys who have stuck with me for so many years, and whether you've just silently watched or you've, you know, grabbed merch or whatever it might be, I really am gunning, and you know, we're all pushing to really make this the best thing that could possibly come out. So that's all I'm going to say about it for now. And once 2 is out, you'll see, and then once 3 is out, you know, you'll all be crying. I won't be the only one that'll be memed at that point.
I love this idea of the fans, you know, taking it because the studio's not functioning, at least in the way that we would like. And I think Star Wars has always had that element. You know, George used to do film festivals.
Yeah.
Where he would, and he would really support the fans doing that and engaging with that. Yeah, I mean, I just wonder, you know, in a dream scenario, because obviously I don't think Kathy's going to hire you. Maybe the next one would, you know what I mean? I mean, if...
I don't want to be hired. Because when you're hired, you have to sign contracts, you got to do it a certain way. And constraints. And, you know, I was offered over 7 figures for sponsorships for Vader. Companies wanting to put their advertisements, big companies. Oh, well, you know, I've had conversations with them. Oh, well, maybe you could put our logo, you know, somewhere in the wall or something, you know, off-brand or, you know, kind of subliminal. We'll pay you X amount of dollars. And I had several different companies hit me up with that years ago. And, you know, I thought about it because I wanted to make the movie and I didn't have the money. And you know, it was definitely something that was catching my eye until I got to the point where, you know, I was talking with my dad, and they're like, they're gonna own you. You know, it's gonna come to a point where, like these corporations, whenever you do sign a contract and they give you the money, then they control where the narrative goes. Well, what if we have Vader doing this? What if we have the Jedi doing this in that scene? And then it's like, oh, well, I kind of have to do this now because they're paying for it. And so it took longer, but at least this way it's all on my own. And it's going to stay true to, you know, I feel like what George made, at least to the best of my ability. And that's why I never want to work for them.
Like for me, I think, you know, Star Wars itself, it exists in pop culture is important. It's almost like a lot of people like indie comics or, you know, smaller books, but without the big two, that industry wouldn't survive, right? So like the big two are almost a necessary evil. Yeah. And what all I'm getting at is, you know, when I think about fandom, and you know, there was a guy who made a very famous Warhammer fan film, and he was hired on, and he's been helping them a lot. I don't know the full extent to which he's involved creatively or whatever, and I know that he's now doing like Vader 2, but like with their resources, and
crazy.
like all on his, and it looks, I'm telling you, it looks fire, like it looks fire. But all I'm saying is that I totally understand what you're saying, but maybe that sacrifices something for the fandom itself. You might have to go deal with all that crap and these corporations and stuff to actually help that brand.
Well, maybe.
You know what I mean?
I'm open to it if it's, you know, on my own terms or whatever, but, you know, let's just make episode 2 first.
Yeah, oh, no, 100%. I love this idea of the fans, and I do think that it's important, even if it's just through the fandom, because especially right now when things are so bad, you're a tide that could lift a lot of things. But at the end of the day,
all of us, especially with AI, have you seen some of the stuff these like 17-year-old kids are making with Star Wars fan films?
Yeah, it's crazy.
I'm like reacting to all of them, having a great time, but I mean, in the back of my mind, I'm like, this actually in a year or two, you could type something out and it'll do it.
I think it'll be indistinguishable from photorealistic stuff probably within the next year or two, right? Yeah. And I view that whole thing as like a tool and not this thing that's coming in to crush all human creativity. I don't think it works. It's generative, meaning, you know, I don't want to do a whole AI thing here, but it's...
We got time, man. They put us on for 4:15, so the way I see it, we got 2 hours or so.
I guess I just view it as another tool in the arsenal. And I think frankly, I believe very strongly that George would have felt the same way and that he would have used it. He was always pushing technology, always trying to figure out ways to enhance and scale up what he was able to do in stories. But yeah, I mean, like the entire world is heading in a direction where things are going to be more accessible than ever. And that line between fan film and corporate product might actually blur a lot over the next couple of years. You know, I saw this thing, I don't know if you guys saw this, Ben Affleck had this interview he did a couple of months ago. He was being asked about AI. He gave this really interesting example, and I thought, I would definitely do that. And he said, you might be around the living room with your buddies. Like imagine like me and Theory are there, and it's late at night, and we're like, well, what do you want to watch? What do we want to do? Well, what if we watched Civil War, the Marvel movie, but let's use AI and I'll be Iron Man, and you be Captain America, and it'll be janky, but like it'll have your face, your voice, you're Captain America, I'm Iron Man, and it's a super janky thing, but it's like a way, and Affleck's angle on it was like it could replace the sales from physical media and these different things, but I think just in terms of how the consumer would use that, and like that would be awesome, you know what I mean? And it's not like you're thinking of that as that's now Civil War. It's more like I now have a way to enjoy Civil War via this technology, make it more personal, and just have fun with my friend.
Yeah, it's cool.
But it's just like all of those lines are going to start blurring.
Yeah.
You know. So, but what I'm saying is like there could be a way for you to actually like tangibly be a part of it within the next 5 years, and especially as technology changes and as the leadership over there changes. I would keep it open. I mean, I would never work with Kathy. You know what I mean? Like personally, I would never do that. But if it was John and Dave, yeah, I would, even a phone call, whatever you need. You know what I mean? Just because I know those guys want to get it back on track.
Yeah, and I think that leads me to the next thing that I wanted to talk about is like, you know, all of you guys, like don't look at us. We're just two dudes that were the same as you. We just applied ourselves on the internet, and now we're, you know, making our own fan films and stuff. Anybody can do it. We're not anything special. We just did it consistently. That's it. And we had a certain vision, and hey, people liked it, you know. But that same goes for everybody else. And I think the future of storytelling is really not in corporations, but in more so how George started it, which is just, you and me.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yep.
Like, that's what Josh is doing with this comic.
Yep.
I've been writing a book. I'm 60 pages in, finally. And I'll be releasing a comic on my own IP, which is turning out to be pretty fun. It's pretty cool, and I'm enjoying the process. So I think if you guys have a story, and I get this question a lot, is like, how do you start YouTube? You just start.
Yeah.
Literally, like that camera, that's it. You should put up a video. Don't have to edit it, nothing fancy. Just start growing your own audience, speaking to people that resonate with you, and it's so easy, man. And it's great, and then you can eventually, that can be your full-time thing maybe. But if you don't apply yourself, you'll never know. So
yeah, the fandom's in a weird spot, and I think a lot of people I know that I want to be excited about Star Wars. I know without a doubt 100% that I want to, but I also know that I'm not. And I know that there are moments where I can kind of break through the fog and find those old feelings again, but more often than not, it's kind of like what you were saying. She asked about the Old Republic, and you kind of went to, but can they? And that's ever present right now, is like, can they actually do this? Yeah. And is it actually going to feel right? You know what's funny is every time I watch the first 6 films, I don't know if you guys have watched them recently, but like you immediately just get that feeling again. Like it's like it never went away. Every time. It's so different. And I like some of the Disney stuff, like Mando, I really enjoyed. Season 1 and 2. Tales of the Jedi was great. So it's like they can hit the mark. Yeah.
It's kind of just, pick and choose, I suppose.
I think ultimately there's been some great stuff created. I think Dave has created some good stuff. I treat Andor on equal footing as Acolyte. I see a corporation. Yeah, I know that's wild. But like, you have to understand that to me, what I'm seeing is a corporation taking a established brand and trying to figure out how to change it in order to make it more like this, that, second, or the third. So like even Andor to me is like they were going after a very mature, like people that like HBO shows or Andy Sorkin shows, or like, they were going after a sophisticated, it's called elevated genre, right? They were trying to elevate the genre, and I have no interest in that. Leslie wanted to make Acolyte, and she wanted to make her version of Star Wars. It's like the only person over there that's just trying to make George's Star Wars. It's actually technically not because it's George, it's because he created it, right? So the only person over there that's doing that is Dave.
Yeah. Why isn't he saying stuff when it comes to Acolyte? Why isn't he saying stuff when it comes to Tales of the Empire?
Yeah.
Which was just I don't know, it didn't hit with me. But then Tales of the Jedi was amazing.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I don't know.
At the end of Ahsoka, I was like, what? That's not really very exciting. Why you turn Thrawn into this dude that's not really Thrawn to me?
Yeah, no, I agree. Here's the thing. We don't know for sure. Dave is private. He doesn't really post on social media. We only really see him at interviews, D23's Star Wars Celebration or whatever, and even then he's very coy with the way that he speaks and he answers things. My perception of this is that he's a blue-collar Pittsburgh boy that just wants to be polite about his boss. And so he's not gonna rock the boat or make waves. But from what I've heard behind the scenes, he absolutely shredded Acolyte and made them change it and made them cut out all the dark stuff that he didn't think was Star Wars. And I'm at least glad that happened, but it's kind of wild to imagine what was the version of Acolyte that was worse, that like Dave didn't like all so much. Maybe it's possible that he views it the same way, where it can be different things for different people, because that's like the corporate idea, right? It's like, we can have this kind of Star Wars for this person and this kind of Star Wars for this person and all that, right? Maybe to a degree he believes that. I hope not, but
who knows? We'll see. Do you want to move on to questions?
Yeah, we do questions, whatever.
If you guys want to do, go for it.
How do you guys feel about both Marvel, Star Wars, Hot Toys, Funko, Lego, Theory Sabers? You've kind of shaken up the game as far as collectibles go. You put a lot of time and effort into the care of the collector mentality. How do you feel like other companies are doing it? What's both of your perspectives on where Marvel's at with toys and Star Wars?
Well, George made the most money with the toys. That's where he, was able to fund all of the other films. Back in the early 2000s when the prequels were out, or even before that when it was just originals, I remember toy shelves being stocked with Star Wars stuff like crazy. I don't think it's because I'm older. It just doesn't seem the same anymore. Do you agree, or which is unfortunate? But I think when it comes to creating a product around something that is really beloved, you need to do it right, because there's two ways to do it. Obviously, you need to make money in order to keep it going and to make better products. But at the same time, you don't want that to be driving you. Well, we see what happens with that.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So you want to make sure you're creating something that really embodies the heart of whatever it is that you're trying to portray or trying to sell, and that be the leading thing of like, oh, what would I want if I was a kid? And when you're a kid, like, you think $10 is, you're like a millionaire. If I were to open this from somebody else, what would I want inside? And so I see that with Lego and the branding and all that stuff. And then you also see the downside of that with stuff that you wish was better, but not.
We see dollar signs, we want to make dollar signs, and without some kind of artistic integrity or somebody in the room that's going to slow them down, you're basically squandering it, right? But it can also work together. So like, I love Secret Wars, the new one, but also the Jim Shooter one. Well, Jim Shooter just wanted to sell toys, So he was like, let's take all the best heroes and all the best villains, and they'll fight on this made up place, and it'll be awesome. And it was awesome. Like, there's nothing to say that you can't crush it and do big business and succeed, but also have some artistic integrity and be plugged in. George knew it. Part of the reason why he succeeded in merchandise is because the attitude was, I'm gonna sell this movie even if they can't. I'm gonna do what they cannot do. I understand how to extract this and how to have this be valuable to people, and they don't. It's an ebb and flow, and it's all about finding how do we get those energies to work together, because even Theory needs to make money off of the sabers, but there's obviously a craftsmanship and a care there that has separated you from the competition, right? So you can get both, you can have both.
Right. That's a good point. The company that stands out to me the most, that was the most special, one that's no longer in production anymore, it's Master Replicas. If you guys are familiar with that, you know that was the company that it made you feel special with their sabers. These were officially licensed. It came with the pamphlet. There was a signature. Like, I couldn't afford the nice ones when I was a kid because they were like $400 or $500. So I would get the .45 scaled replicas, which were like a tenth of the price. So I had the mini ones. But even those came with a card.
Yeah.
Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
Signature. This is a little story about whose lightsaber it was. It was Luke's or Vader's. Dude, I felt so special. Like, I loved that thing. I remember doing video reviews before YouTube even existed. And I don't know where those videos are, but they were cool. A lot of companies nowadays, it's gone from let's create something that's really quality to what can we make at the cheapest cost to us, but the most profit. And you can imagine the numbers that were thrown at me for saber companies that wanted me to endorse their brand, or to even be the face of a new brand that was done by them for years. Good money. And I never did it because I knew, just like the Vader sponsorship thing, if I were to do that, then I'd be selling out, and eventually they would be creating something that wasn't what I wanted, and I need to be in full control, as expensive as it is to create something like that. So I think really if you balance the cost of making, so make sure it's a high cost for you, because then the product is going to be better most times, and then it's something that's at least somewhat affordable, but enough for you to make a profit so you can keep going.
Yeah. That's very important. Is like, it's a balance.
I could have pumped and dumped. I could have made a one-off Theory sabers, and everyone would have bought it the first time, and it would have been shit. And I never wanted that, because you want repeat customers, and that's the same thing that I felt with Master Replicas. Is I wanted that whole collection, all of them.
Yeah.
Which is like, now on eBay they're like $2-3 grand a pop. Which is crazy, but I think that's the most important thing when it comes to collectibles, is making something where you want to buy again.
You have to really want it, and it has to feel good the whole way. You want the consumer to be filled with good feelings. Definitely think there's a lack of that consideration in a lot of our world, but
it's like how you want your husband or wife to be, right?
Right.
Forever, right? So you want it to look good forever. You want it to be good forever.
Kick the tires before you make that purchase.
There you go, yeah. So we just want quality. And I think in today's corporate world, where movies and shows and products are just trying to make a buck and capitalize, I fell for it too, so many times.
Well, to your point, fans might start making collectibles, and they might be legit.
Yeah.
They have.
They have, yeah.
So there's a company that Dragon Ball Z's huge.
Oh, yeah.
Huge. He's been around for a long time. Early 80s, I think.
Yeah.
But there's a company called SH Figure Arts.
Yeah.
Really expensive, but
Yeah.
they make good product.
Right.
Expensive.
I love
There's a
SH
company-
figures.
Dude,
Yeah.
There's a fan company that came out recently, Beast Eaters.
Okay.
And they released, just recently, I've been wanting this figure for a long time. I sent you a video, probably.
Yeah.
That was a fan-made figure.
Wow.
And it destroyed one that's now, not like actually destroyed, but it was fan-made.
Yeah.
I've been looking for this Brawly for a long time. It's like $400 back order now. And I got this figure, like a fan sent it to me because he's like, hey, you love your Darth Maul. And I was like, anyways, $90 is what they were pre-ordering these figures for. And you would not be able to tell the difference between SH figures and Beast deities. And they're selling these because they want people to be able to have them.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of like what you said, but they're a fan-based company.
Yeah. Sort of independent, and as technology with like 3D printing and stuff improves, like it's gonna get wild what people could do. I mean, some of you could literally be the ones to do it. To come up with it.
Yeah, you have no idea what the future holds for you.
He's got a little girl, and I have a little girl, doing like a week. We're just talking about how we're going to start.
Congrats, by the way.
Thank you. We're talking about how we're going to start our kids on Star Wars, like what the best order would be kind of to do that.
Sequels. Right off the bat.
Yeah. Can't go worse from there, I guess. But yeah, if you guys had maybe an idea of what trilogy to start with, what you would do, like with Rogue One, Solo, all that. Josh, with your kids, have you started yet? Or?
They tried a little bit of that Young Jedi Adventures. I don't know if anybody's seen that on Disney Plus. And you know, my son, like, he liked it a little bit, but you know, he's just stuck on Bluey, man. Like, it's crazy. Like, and I'll always come down, and it's so funny. Maybe I'll record it the next time I say this to him. But I'll come down and I'll be like, Liam, do you want to watch X-Men? And he says, no, X-Men. And I said, you want to watch Spider-Man? No, Spider-Man. How about Bluey? And I'm like, for the millionth time, we're gonna watch fucking Bluey? All right, whatever you want, man. But yeah, I mean, I've thought about that. It's tough because, you know, for me, it's like at one level, I definitely want to share stuff with them. And I mean, that's one of the things, when they're little, they're so cute, but they don't do shit, right? So it's fun, but you also like look forward to sharing stuff with them. Like even my son, who's the oldest, I'm looking forward to a couple of years from now when I could take him to the movie theater. And I remember when the live action Lilo and Stitch trailer came out, I like came upstairs and made sure to watch it with him, and he didn't fully know what was going on, but he like liked it. And so on one level, it's like you want to share something with them, but also like you just want them to be authentically happy. So like if my son somehow found out about Rey and liked Rey, it would be very hard for me to be like, she's a Mary Sue, son. You know, like let's erase yeah. So for me, it will probably, I'll try some things, but I'm slowly learning that the things that kids do are like in between the things you try to do, basically. So yeah, he'll figure it out, and I guess I'll figure it out too.
The best order is, well, George actually talked about that. I made a video about it years ago. It was from one of the behind the scenes books, I think. He said, if you watch it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is how he intended, you get a completely different outcome and feel than if you watch it how a lot of us watch it, which is 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3. So if you do it the first way, which is in chronological order, you kind of know who Vader is, and you're waiting for Luke to find out.
Yeah, I like that.
Whereas if you watch it, you know, in order of release, you're as surprised as Luke. So you connect with Luke more, which is maybe why I connected with him so much more partially as a kid, because you're kind of in it with him and you're like, wait, what? And your reaction is the same as his. Whereas the other way, you're following Anakin's journey. You know he's Vader. Episode 4, you know that he turned into Vader. Episode 3, you saw him, and then 5, when he reveals that, you're like, okay, now we're all on the same page. So it depends what kind of experience you want him to have, or her.
Just makes me remember how good those movies are too.
Yeah.
Like just, you know what I mean? Just that question, it's like you start thinking about it, and you're like, damn, those are really good movies.
And every time I watch them, it just brings you back right away.
Most people that become writers start with having taste, preference. There are things we really like, there are things we don't like. Our preference takes us to a place where when we write our first thing and we're like, this shit sucks, it's because we have a preference for the better stuff. So that guides us towards trying to get better. So I think any and every one of you could tell a great story and write something great. Different disciplines, different mediums require different skills. But ultimately, like, it's not a big deal if you aren't classically or traditionally trained. If you're a storyteller, if you've grown up on stories, you should be able to intuit it. It'll be in you. Because you weren't traditionally trained,
No, I didn't
right?
have any training. I just I was writing since I was a kid.
Yeah.
I won an award once in school. I think it was in grade 8 for a short story I wrote. It was about like killer squirrels.
What? I want to read that, dude. That sounds cool.
Yeah, it was wild.
I'm intrigued. Yeah.
That could be after episode, Vader episode.
Yeah, that's the
3.
next one. Yeah.
The squirrel pops up in Vader.
From what I remember, this kid falls into a well and there are killer squirrels, and I something like that. Anyways,
Yeah.
I won.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I live in a house of writers. My wife just finished a novel, and she's been like writing it, you know, kind of on the side as, you know, she does all the kid stuff and all that. But I was super impressed, man. She just had a story. She was inspired, and she went after it. And like 120,000 words later, she's got this thing that now she's bugging me to read. So I think it's great, and I think you guys should have some kind of creative outlet. You know what I mean? If you're drawn to that, you have to go for it.
It doesn't have to be in depth, but who's one character that you think has been underutilized by Disney that they inherited?
Ooh, that's a good question. Luke Skywalker? I mean, that's the most obvious one, for sure. I mean, look, I like Kit Fisto. I've always thought Kit Fisto was really cool. Mara Jade, obviously. Dude, I just want to say like Han Solo, Leia, Luke, you know?
I was going to say all of them.
No, but it's, in all seriousness, that is kind of part of it. It's like they don't feel like the same characters in a lot of ways. And I think they've gotten some of those cool things stripped out. I mean, Han is he's supposed to be a thief with a heart of gold. He's a knucklehead, but he's also like, he's competent in certain areas, and he's a skilled pilot, and he has a heart of gold, but he's a knucklehead. And then they just kind of turn him into this like weird deadbeat dad that's, you know, and I don't know. So yeah, I'd say probably that.
Dash Rendar would be cool.
Ooh, yeah.
The darker version of Han. You know,
Yeah.
That, or I think Bane would be sweet to really like make his character live action, or you know, whatever, or even animated, I guess is fine. I mean, the one I want to see number one the most is Plagueis. I like the stuff around the main movies. Legends is really great. I love Legends. I don't know as much about it as I do the first 6 films, and I just like threw myself into those and everybody around them. So Plagueis, Palpatine, and all the stories around those guys are like what I really cared about as a kid. And
Yeah.
So for me, Plagueis.
You know what's crazy about Bane too is like, you think about Bane, I feel like any studio or any like Hollywood executive would be really happy to have that book and those characters and that level of success, even if it wasn't Star Wars. Cause like, it's a really good series and emotional, and like in some ways has depth that even George's stuff lacked because he was playing in mythology land. So there's some stuff in Bane that's like even potentially edgier.
It's beautiful.
But it's like, how do they not, like, so everybody would kill to have that book, and she has the ability to do it right now. And for whatever reason, it's just not a priority.
That's the thing. It depends who's in charge, really. So
Yeah, it's just such a weird question, or not your question, but like that question of like, why aren't they doing these characters? You're talking obscure. Bane's not obscure, right? But it feels obviously like a win. It would be good.
I thought it was so strange when she said we have no source material and books and comics and stuff.
And then a year later, she discovered it all too. Do you remember that? She had a quote a year later that said, "We've now discovered the 10,000 years of lore." But it's like you finally figured it out.
It's funny to like laugh at it, but at the same time, I'm just scratching my head. I'm like, well, what?
Yeah, it's seriously strange. Yeah.
Anyways, we've talked about it, I feel like a million times.
Somebody's got to have a button every time we start.
Literally, Just repeat the same old stuff. I work with an artist called Film at Crossroads, and he does a lot of the cool like old school stuff that we've been releasing lately, like with Luke and Dark Empire and things that we want to do in the future with that. I'm not exactly sure what he uses, but we actually do a lot of we create models and we rig them ourselves, and then we do the voices. And then we throw the voices into, I don't think it's 11 Labs, but I think it's something else.
Similar,
to make it sound, so we get the influx of the emotions and stuff, so it's not robotic, because AI still has that, there's some words where it just sounds like it just doesn't carry.
Yeah.
So, and we don't want it to sound like that, because it just ruins it. So, I don't really know what AI stuff I don't really think we use anything, but besides what I do with him, but for Vader, there's no AI whatsoever.
Somebody saw some of my work and they assumed that that's what I use. They didn't know that I was painting myself every time.
Oh wow.
And they're like, so you've got to use something. And I was like, no, this is freehand every time.
Yeah.
And they're like, but you've seen, I was like, yeah, I have seen AI models, and it does scare me just because it's one of those things, like, not that I'd ever try to be the character. But that was one of the things that scares me. Sometimes it's kept me up at night. Because I do want to do a fan film.
Yeah.
But it's the thing that scares me is once that's replaced, I can't compete with something that doesn't take hours to get made.
So let me ease your concerns right there. So one thing with Vader that we were knocking out of the park, but is still difficult to do and takes so much more time and money than if you have an actor, are the facial expressions. It is so difficult to nail a facial expression, including the eyes.
That's something I saw. That's one of the reasons why it's not so bad, because every time I do see an AI model, whenever he moves, the entire makeup shifts. It changes to something different.
So then it's stuck to, you know, limitations of like, I can't. So it's never going to be as, you know, what a real human can do. But if you want to sacrifice that time and money to go in and like edit that and like composite that, no, dude, that is so tedious.
Yeah, I mean, my opinion is you're one of the. I think you're totally safe. In fact, AI would.
I can't have AI out of my boot. My boot.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. No, but it's bigger than that, because AI will, I think, create a desire for more human stuff. Mm-hmm. So like, in a world where any person can generate any video or image any day, something that feels authentic becomes even more rare. And so the interactions you can have with a human face to face will literally never be replaced by AI. But maybe AI will be able to take the video that the guy takes with you and be able to like make it dope with like TIE fighters flying in the background, and he'll be able to do that with a click of a button.
Just to follow up on that question, I don't have a problem with AI. Somebody actually recently, the cat that had passed away a couple of years ago, they made an AI video to bring her back for me. So there is a good and dark side to every technology.
Yep.
Just like the Force.
Like what I think is far more scarier is like quantum computing that can break crypto encryption. You know what I mean? Like there's stuff that's like, could pretend, like what if every bank account in the world goes to zero? You know what I mean? Like that's the stuff that I worry about with AI.
It's technology.
Yeah.
We have to grow with it. Just like George said, you gotta move with it.
It might be the case that at the end of this whole thing with AI, we realize that consciousness itself is actually far more sacred, potentially something only we have. The robots will never have. Do you know what I mean? So in that sense, our stock goes way up, actually. So yeah, I don't know, just a thought, but yeah.
My quick question is, I know your favorite character is Anakin. Who's your favorite character, Luke?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably have to say Luke. I like Anakin a lot too, though. I like Han. Yeah, I don't know.
All right, so just a quick question. So take your favorite character, and who would they, in your opinion, be united with or allianced with in the Game of Thrones?
In Game of Thrones? Oh, I love that. I love that. So I think Chewbacca would be from the North. Palpatine would be probably a Targaryen. Yeah. I unfortunately think Luke might be a Lannister.
I feel like Luke would be Jon Snow.
Exactly, though. But okay, so maybe he's a Targaryen raised as a Stark. Because if you think about it, Luke comes from royalty. He's a prince. Yeah, and he's blonde. He's a prince. He's whiny. He's entitled. But he grows up on a farm with like his other side of the family. Yeah, he kind of is Jon Snow a little.
A little bit. Yeah. That's the extent of my Game of Thrones.
Nice.
How more so recently, especially like with post-COVID and stuff, the love for the prequels has really come out. Do you guys think that's more of a nostalgia thing or more of a comparison thing, where we're starting to compare it more to the new products and we're not really liking the new products and we go back and start enjoying that more?
Good question. When I was growing up, the prequels weren't really liked all that much.
But we didn't really know that.
No.
That's what's weird about it.
I would see it in school and I'd defend the crap out of it against other kids, and they're just like, you don't know acting, and I'm like, I don't know. I think a lot of the people like me who was a kid and really liked it are now old. Well, older. So it's like, now we can speak up about it, and you got Twitter and all this and that. But I think back then we didn't really have that, so it was kind of like stuck inside of your own little friend group or comic shop or whatever. But I think also it is a good comparison, like you said, to what's coming out today. Definitely. Because like that's, I don't know, like I said, when you watch the first 6, it just feels different.
Yeah. The reason people went so hard on the prequels when they first came out is because like Star Wars, especially that first one, but that whole first trilogy was so big that this was not like just another IP. This was like the biggest thing in the world. And so you had all these fans that had, for 20 years or so, imagined what the Old Republic was like, imagined, because, there's a little line here and there, right. Obi-Wan says this and that, and you imagine it for 20 years.
We fought in the Clone Wars.
Yeah, and then George does it and you're like, what? Like, they're flipping around, they all have ponytails, like, you know, they're talking funny, they all are like, you know, so I think for a lot of fans, they just were like, this is so not what I thought it was gonna be. But I do think there were a lot of fans that appreciated it, and then what really helped the prequels were creators that then went into the Dark Horse books and then went into other books and were like, okay, so now that I know what this looks like, let me put an edge on it and let's roll with this. Because like that happened. Like there were a ton of stories that took place after the prequels come out that tell those older stories using what George had kind of set up. So I think that helped, but yeah, it's everything like you said too. I mean, the sequels definitely made them look a lot better by comparison, 100%.
If you were in Star Wars, would you still be a human, or what kind of alien species would you be?
I feel like I'd be a Zabrak.
I want to be one of those people at the fancy, what was the thing in Last Jedi? With all the...
All right, I'm out.
It was all the fancy people, what was the thing called? The casino? Canto Bite, yeah. I think I'd like to be a total prick, fancy facial hair that's like up to here, some ridiculous fluffy outfit, and be very rude.
The one day you just pulled up my art on your stream, it like pretty much just changed my life entirely. But now, you know, I got into the Lego space, I'm able to do like custom designs for minifigures. And it's definitely given me a home with ACOB, like a group there. But my question for you,
That's
for
awesome.
both of you guys, you know, behind, like when you guys are like off cam and everything, you know, when it's just you guys, what are the things that you wish people would understand about what you do? You know, like the limitations of what you can, because I feel like when you're creating what you guys do, people have this high expectation. How do you guys keep hitting that bar every time?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a tough one because, you know, it's funny, I see some of my guys over here, and frankly, like, I probably...
I thought he gave you the finger check.
I did.
I was like, wait, there's another finger.
That's how you definitely know they're my guys.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I maybe dip into this a little bit too much sometimes, where I complain or I bitch about, you know, how hard YouTube is or how hard streaming is, so maybe I'm a bad person.
I just want to know, after Vader comes out, are there any other Star Wars fan films that, you know, you'd be interested in making, and if so, what those look like?
I want to do like a rendition of the Plagueis novel where we would go through the timeline and then Maul would come in. That would be great, and it ties into Episode 1. I think that would be really cool because we'd see Dooku, Qui-Gon, Plagueis, Palpatine, and Maul. But to be honest, after Episode 3, during this time, I'd still like to release my own book, which I'm turning into a comic book. It'll be 3 different books, and the first one's probably going to be 300 to 400 pages. And the comic, I don't know how many issues that's going to be of the first draft or whatever it is. But that's really what I want to focus on after that, or at least during or something, see where it goes. But beyond that, I think, God willing, Theory Sabers keeps going great and the channel keeps growing. I could make the most insane fan films with my own little team that we're now... The dream is to have my own team that I have for Vader, but all in one studio, and we're just cranking out the sickest films, one after the other. High quality productions with nobody telling us what to do on my own dime, which is funded by the fans essentially through products and merch and this and that. So that's really, the sky's the limit. I feel like we're just getting started.
So I feel like a lot of the new Star Wars stuff, I guess, switches between like being too like focused on like how the old ones are, that it like just doesn't. How do you think they should find that balance between like not being too new but not just trying to like fully become the old thing, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's maybe the greatest challenge that the brand faces, and I think it's made more difficult because of some of these other shows. So like, again, you know, not to take it always back to Andor, but Andor is very different than a lot of other Star Wars. I would argue Acolyte is very different than a lot of other Star Wars. It has tonal difference or tonal similarities, but it's kind of like doing its own thing. So like Disney has tried both. They've tried to do very nostalgic shows, and then they've tried to do new versions and push things forward. They haven't quite cracked it, and unfortunately, I think because of the way they're failing, they're like losing the ability to do both. Meaning, you know, nobody really watched Andor, it has very low viewership. Same thing with Acolyte, Skeleton Crew's the same way. So it's almost like every time they go outside of nostalgia, it fails. But from Kenobi on, everything has gotten lower viewership. Boba was one, and Boba is like nostalgia because it's Boba, but then they like do a totally different thing.
It's not Boba, it was Booba.
Yeah, it's
something else.
Yeah, it's like rule with respect guy, right? So like that's not it. So they haven't figured this out. The more they get it wrong, the harder it's going to be to get fans to embrace it. I think it looks like very far into the future and striking similarities tone-wise and story-wise to what George did, but like all new characters, potentially new designs on ships, like all of that. But that, I think, is the toughest problem that they face, actually.
That's a good question, but I think the whole thing is just the wrong way to look at it from their perspective. What can we do to kind of harken back to what George created? They're trying to play on some sort of like formula, whereas George was just trying to tell a story. Be linear, just continue the story. That's all they got to do. And they're just trying to think about it too much, I think. Continue the story as it was. Use the same themes.
A visionary would help. So like if you had a person that had a vision for exactly what you're talking about, like what Star Wars would look like in the future, if that vision is pure and it feels similar to George's, like I think it could work. I love Denis Villeneuve and what he does with the Dune stuff. He's not going to do Star Wars, right? But like it would take a guy like that had actual vision that could bring it to life, and then we'd get like the project I am most excited for right now within Star Wars is Ahsoka Season 2, and then potentially Dave's movie. To me, Ahsoka Episode 6 was the closest that we've gotten to a new kind of Star Wars that still scratches all the old itches. You know, that episode has castles and witches and catacombs and people riding wolves. It feels like Berserk or something out of Elden Ring, and yet it's Star Wars, and I loved it for that because it was something that felt unique, right? But then the next two episodes are goobly glob. So can he strike that tone again and carry that forward? Oh, that would be great. But it's going to take somebody with vision.
Your lack of vision.
Putting the trilogy, the original trilogy together, or with Luke, Leia, and Han.
Yeah.
And would it be better to recast them? Because they keep bringing Luke back now. And they want to do more with Luke, clearly. So I'm curious if, like, would it be better to have it animated with his stories or to just recast?
Good question.
Yeah.
I think animated you can get away with a lot more of the disbelief of, oh, you can't really do that in Star Wars. Whereas if it's animated, it's like, okay, no big deal. It's a different form. So like, and that was one of the things I was really looking at with Vader. Do I want to do this in live action like the first one, where like things have to be like you'll get good facial recognition, like facial expressions and stuff, which in the third one, I mean, there's quite difficult to do, but is it gonna be the same? There's a scene in the third film that I think will just hit better if it's in animated form. And so like you said, if we were to do that, I mean, I know someone did the fight in Clone Wars style. It was cool. Yeah. I don't know if you guys saw that on YouTube. Yeah, I'm up for it. I don't think I would do it personally myself because I feel like those films are just so locked in as live action. It's great.
Yeah.
But it'd be cool to see. Yeah.
It's just tough. Like I love animation, and
like if I could add one thing, if you took the Clone Wars and some of the like far-fetched scenes and made them live action, like imagine how that would. You'd be like, it's kind of weird. So it's the same thing.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I love animation. I think it's a brilliant form. I'm a big fan of like anime and, you know, Eastern animation. In that culture, it's so much more accepted as mainstream. There's still this thing in the West that like cartoons or animation is just kind of looked at as lower tier or like lower. It's kind of unfortunate, but it's also just like the reality, right? So if you were asking me about like making the next Luke Skywalker thing in animation, I think you're absolutely right that artistically that might be the way to go. And there's all kinds of reasons that could be. And part of it's like the style could mask the fact that this isn't Mark Hamill anymore and, you know, those kind of things. But ultimately from the perspective of like, would people watch this? Would this do really, really well? I don't really see a lot of evidence for it. I mean, that War of the Rohirrim movie, I thought that thing was going to do well, and it did terribly. Actually, anime movies that have come over to the States have done better in the theaters than that. So whether it's like My Hero or Demon Slayer or whatever, those movies are crushing even here. But for whatever reason, the Lord of the Rings one did not. So I don't know. It's a tricky one. Animated Star Wars has some of the best stuff in Star Wars,
For sure, like, and that's because of Dave, right? Yeah, I don't know. I would like it. Would everybody else like it? That's the question, I guess.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I just want to say thanks.
Oh, I can't see this
We all know life
Thank
can
you.
be rough, and between all the watch parties and nerd theory and everything, you guys brought a lot of laughter. Specifically, like when Wesley kept asking you what your favorite cheese. I think it was Wesley. Kept asking your favorite cheese. I know you guys kept joking about banging the homies for a little bit.
That was a joke?
Yeah.
Also, definitely when, Super Chat up, very inappropriate profile picture. Josh was laughing so hard he couldn't tell you, but when life's rough, thanks for all the laughs.
Thank you so much for
Hey,
showing up.
appreciate
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, that one was a funny one. I remember watching that back.
Yeah. No, I mean, we had some great moments. I think that, I don't know, content's a funny thing, man, I don't know. It's just, sometimes we get together and just wild stuff happens,
We have a good dynamic.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just gets funny.
Yeah, it is.
And it's lighthearted, and I feel like we speak from, the heart. We don't have any sort of agenda.
Yeah.
When I first started doing the show with Theory, there was definitely an intimidation factor when I first got in there. But then, dude, within the first episode, we just found it. And I think that's one of those things that, we just got lucky. That's not me trying hard, that's not you trying hard, it's just we were the right guys to do the show together. So that's part of what the reason we want to bring the show back. And frankly, it's just very tough for me because I'm very not happy with Star Wars. That's part of the reason why I walked away, really, is I just felt myself turning, and this was in the middle of Ahsoka too. I work a lot, you work a lot, we collaborate a lot. It's pretty obvious after a couple of years when you don't ever find something like it.
People are still asking about it.
Yeah.
And I've brought in different groups and tried to do different shows, and people are still like, where's Josh? We miss Nerd Theory, this is great, but where's Nerd Theory? And I mean, I love Stupendous Wave, and I love Dash, and that show will remain, it's great.
Yeah, I like those guys a lot.
But we need to bring back what we once had.
Yeah.
And there aren't too many people out there, I've watched others, they're either shilling, or there's an agenda, or something, they're pushing something, or it doesn't flow.
Yeah.
We have a considerable decent-sized following thanks to you guys, and we aren't bought out.
Yeah.
It's rare.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, it's just, like we said, it's one of those things you can't make. It just happens, you discover it.
Yeah, it just
feels too right. Basically, it just feels too good. Yeah. So we have to figure it out. And I'm busy as hell, you're busy as hell, but we're gonna figure it out.
We'll make time.
Yeah.
Even, a couple hours every 2 weeks is
Yeah,
awesome.
there's a lot of things that we can talk about, but I think we can do weekly. We just have to maybe put some guide rails on and make sure we don't get burnt out, and then have the freedom to take a week off too if we need to.
I think that's what was happening.
Yeah.
Was there was nothing to talk about, and we're forced to talk about Star Wars.
I don't like, and I know you don't like, having the same conversation over and over again. Unfortunately, because of Star Wars, and it's a little on me too, because, and maybe it's just hard, man, because I'm a fan at heart. I'm not really a pundit, I'm a fan, that figured out a way into broadcasting. So I have a hard time hiding my feelings. And man, I was just really getting sour about, so welcome to Nerd Theory. Star Wars is still fucked, See you next week,
So we gotta open it up to
open up
talking with fans.
We will figure it out.
I don't know if you guys knew, but the voice actor for Vader in my fan film met his wife on set. Now they're married, obviously. Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories like that. It's cool. It's like a sweet byproduct of just having a channel, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Doing your thing.
Just flowing.
Just chilling. Yeah.
You think Star Wars would be safe?
Yeah, always. Absolutely. For sure.
Without clearing house?
No.
I'll be a little bit more optimistic, even though there's a big part of me that doesn't actually even believe anything I'm about to say. Is there a way, for sure? What would that look like? I only know what it would look like for me. What that would look like is a couple good projects, good stuff on the horizon. I feel like they care more, and I just need to see a change. You know what I mean? And if I see a change, and if Dave's at the heart of it, I have to believe that every 2 years at Star Wars Celebration, Dave Filoni being on the main stage for as long as possible, there has to be some good stuff that comes out of that. Dave Filoni being in the position he's in now, and potentially even a higher position, and crafting young creators into that brand, there has to be some good stuff that comes out of that. If enough good stuff comes out of that, and we get away from some of the divisive stuff, the stuff we don't like, I could see myself being a satisfied Star Wars fan again. So for me, that would mean it's no longer dead, right? Now, is that because it's not commercial anymore and they're not making any money, but I'm happy? Maybe. But yeah, I think there's hope.
Always.
Do you think there's anybody right now?
You mean
Filoni big enough to run the whole thing?
No, I don't
think he is.
I don't trust him anymore.
But I don't think you can run
Sadly.
So he's currently CCO, and there's a lot of indication that he will be co-president at the very least. And they'll probably stick him with somebody very corporate, right? So it's probably Carrie Beck. And is that perfect? No. Is that maybe like a launch pad into all new Star Wars? No. But I have to believe it's better than what's going on right now, which is like Kathy just is the final stop. She's the final boss. Every buck stops with her. So I'll give you one thing that is, to me, is very enthusiastic about this. I've heard some reporting suggest that a lot of people at Disney are actually really frustrated with Kathy. But Kathy's so powerful for whatever reason. She's so powerful that they cannot stop her, okay? So potentially, even if she gets kicked out just one notch away from that position and she's still producing, Disney could be heavily incentivized to come in and be like, Dave, and like take it in a different direction, which at the very least would be getting it away from her. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, so I'm actually optimistic that that could happen because, you know, even though Disney has its fair share of problems, it's not like everybody at Disney is an idiot. There's been people at Disney throughout the last 5 years that have been pulling their hair out at a lot of the stuff that they're doing, right? I mean, we hear these reports, they come out. The problem is, you know, it's the money and it's at the tippity top, right? So you can get conspiratorial about it or you can just see it for what it is. And it's like, that's where that pressure is coming. And Kathy has this weird, inordinate amount of power. So if she is removed, even if she's still lingering, I have to believe that's better and potentially a lot better if Disney comes in and they're like, you know, Dave, we're not doing this, this, and this anymore, right? You know what I mean? Like, so if that happens, sign me up, man. Like that, we're off to the races at that point. We'll see.
So I just want to know what your thoughts is on why there isn't more games like that nowadays with Star Wars, or and what your opinion is on like what kind of games in the future you would like to see in Star Wars.
I think this harkens back to his question, which was like they're trying to figure out what direction do we go in. Like, how do we, you know, like elicit what George created instead of just continuing, you know, if they continued those games, man, they'd be making billions. I mean, geez, a Force Unleashed 3, I really think it's just lack of vision. I really think like it's just a bunch of like you said, corporate suits.
Yeah,
people are just pushing pencils. They don't know anything about what's going on or what people want. They just see it as like a money-making machine.
Yeah, and it's also like they're just dumb, right? So like they had an official license locked up with EA for like a decade. They break that and bring in Ubisoft, and then Ubisoft delivers a turd. Absolutely. So it's like here's the thing though, like think about that. They break exclusivity for the first time in a decade and they give it to a studio that every gamer in the world knew was on the downtrend. It wasn't the right studio. And Kathy's living in the 80s, so she's like, Ubisoft, you know, and it's not working, dude. It's not working. So they're making poor decisions at the top. There are people right now, like fans probably, that could make games or mods for Star Wars that are better, and yet they're not being approached because of the leadership. So even the Jedi games, it kind of breaks my heart because I love that studio that made those games, the guys that made Apex, but that second game was, to me, a watered down version, which is typical EA, typical AAA budget. It's, you know, they're not making waves and breaking ground. Who the fuck is these days, you know?
The fans.
Yeah, that's it though.
We
Like
are.
everybody, they're so afraid, and I understand because if I were in Hollywood right now, I'd be afraid too. Because technology is disruptive, the fan base is super mad. Snow White's about to lose hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, yeah, like dude, I would be terrified too. But they're doing the wrong thing. Fear-based decisions are usually made of lack and scarcity. They're not thinking in terms of how do we thrive, how do we find someone with vision and give them a lot of money to make something really cool. They're thinking, how do we hedge our bets? How do we make something that will clearly clear this many units, et cetera, et cetera. It's all the worst kind of thinking.
You guys can rewatch one movie for the first time again. Which one would it be and why?
Revenge of the Sith.
If I could rewatch one movie for the first time, that's a good one, dude.
Oh
It's tricky because I had such a good time when I saw The Force Awakens the first time.
Kill him. Kill him now.
Cool. No, it really was. Like, I don't have that experience. To clarify your question, would I be going back in time, or would I just erase my memory and watch it for the first time? Because if I go back in time, I want to go to.
Try to save the universe. So.
Well, I don't care about the universe, but I would go watch Force Awakens again. That was a great experience for me. That crowd was crazy, lightsabers all over it. I remember loving that movie, that little alien popped its head out after BB was coming out. I loved it. I did. And to be honest with you too, and this will really send him on crazy. Even The Last Jedi is a really crazy experience the first time you watch it. When the first time you watched The Last Jedi, how did you react when Snoke got cut in half?
Like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, there were all kinds of reactions in my theater. People were like, what? Like literally audibly like, what? Some people were like, that's bullshit. Some people thought it was awesome, but it was a ride.
Dude, it was so jarring that I went home and I made a theory that this is actually good because he's just gonna come back as some sort of like clone or a Force ghost or some bullshit.
I don't know if I've ever had an experience like that in a movie that's so jarring, so back and forth, you know, like absolutely despising the Leia shit.
Subverting your expectations.
It subverted everything. My nipples were subverted. It was crazy. Yeah, no, I don't know. I would say, if I'm going back in time, I would say The Force Awakens. If I'm erasing my memory, probably Empire. Empire's a good ride.
All right.
No more questions. He's done. He's good.
Next question.
Going back to the comic book thing, I heard you mention before that you were going to go through Rippaverse to publish it. Is that something you're still considering?
Yeah, for sure. Just got to finish the book first. They wanted me to start with, when I pitched them that, like, look, I'm making my own comic book. Is that something that you would be able to help with in terms of facilitating for publishing? Like artists and colorists and publishing the actual, like, I want nice pages, I don't want, and they were like, of course. I was like, hey, how do we get started? Because I have the story. And they're like, well, the way of writing a comic is totally different than writing a book. I like writing the book. I want to write the whole book out. I want you to know what the air smells like in a scene. I want you to know like what the walls, the texture of the walls are like, the weight of the fabric that they're wearing, how it's billowing in the wind. I like writing that shit out. With a comic book, I'm not as good at like explaining, what this panel is like and that panel is like. So I'm first finishing the whole book, and then I'm going to give it to them, and then they can give me passes of what they think is right, and I'll be like, yeah, okay, this thing or not. That's how I'm doing it, but yeah, I'm open to it for sure.
The artist too, whoever you end up doing the book with, the art, the artist will be a big help to you in that sense. Because if you describe it, even if you're not like perfect with the paneling, oftentimes a good artist will have a vision for how to put that into cartooning.
I love how Invincible looks.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, I want that.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Otley, well, there's a couple artists, but Ryan Otley is just an incredible cartoonist. So, yeah, man, that's going to be, I think, the key is who is your artist, and especially if you don't feel like, you're crazy good at the comic book writing, because I agree with you, it's a totally different kind of writing.
It is.
He'll be able to bring...
I like detail, and I feel like once I write it all out, they'll be able to then, sketch exactly what it's supposed to look like. But I like that high contrast feel of like, how Invincible is like, the background contrasting with the character in front of you.
Yeah, it pops, yeah.
Whereas in some other comic books, it's like everything's very dark and cinematic and cool.
Yeah.
But that's not the look I want, except for a few scenes in there which have that.
A couple years ago, we were trying to do a May the 4th celebration at one of our big venues that we have. And we wanted to show the original Star Wars. So we reached out to one of the distributors that sell the rights. And they told us that there is no original trilogy stuff or prequel trilogy stuff, just Disney. So we actually ended up, through our connections, we went all the way up the top and actually started communicating to Lucasfilm about it. No desire to sell the rights to allow us to publicly show anything that George created. Do you guys have any comments on it, or do you have any idea as to why that may be?
Those are the same people that took George's sequel trilogy treatment, bought it, said that they were going to use it, and then just locked it away.
It's probably just that they've invested in the assets that they've built, right? The characters and the things that they've built. And to be honest with you, just from a business perspective, I totally understand that. Like, my thing is, I don't think they should do Rey movies, and they should probably let that go. But there's a way to keep Rey within the like story, like either have her as this thing people remember or something, right? Just throw them a bone. You know, it's probably just they don't either make as much money on it, or it's just a corporate consideration where they're like, yeah, we're not really trying to have that out there. So like an example in Marvel right now, it's really weird, is T'Challa, right? Like the Black Panther. So the issue is Chadwick passed, Disney decides they sort of make that canon and have the character die as well. And the whole idea was we're gonna have the legacy of Chad be preserved, that he was the Black, he was T'Challa, nobody else will ever be T'Challa. And you know, maybe on some level that makes sense. The problem is, T'Challa is like an awesome character, and people just like love that character, want to experience. Funny things start happening. You know, there's a new video game that's about to come out. It's T'Chaka as the Black Panther, not T'Challa, right? Comic books coming out right now. T'Challa's dying in the comics now, and they're going to replace him in the comics. So that's probably that same thinking, where they're like, okay, so in our big movies, T'Challa is dead, and we're going to build up his son. So would it really make sense for us to continue to build up T'Challa in other mediums, or should we build up the character we're about to put into the movie, right? So I'm not saying it's right or whatever, but that's probably like a similar thinking on the corporate end. They're just like, because they just view it as like assets and, you know, money. So,
yeah. Next up.
So with the sequels like existing and all that, I believe in your mind or your opinion, is it worth like them continuing after like Mandalorian trying to make that better? Or would you personally just rather have some other point in time with Star Wars and just like start, not even try to fix the sequel?
There's so many cool timelines that we could discuss. I don't know why they're not touching it.
I kind of feel like they need to go forward. Like they need to go past everything they've done, which technically I think they are planning to do with like Sean Levy and then all that stuff. My problem is that it feels like that's all gonna be connected to Rey. I'd go like 1,000 years in the future, and to be honest with you, I wouldn't even really like have Rey's name in like the opening crawl or whatever. Like I'd still try to make it more about Luke. Yeah, I mean, my desire is for them to go forward. There was a time where I was maybe more open to fixing the sequels, perhaps with like a Clone Wars style show, because that did a lot for Anakin, you know what I mean, like that show. But I'm not personally, I don't really want that anymore. I'm kind of over it, but.
I believe it was near Outbound Flight where Palpatine was looking for a cheaper option than cloning, and they were doing rapid clones or something on the moon, I guess around Coruscant. But after that, I think it was around that, now like it's been a long time since I've read it, but did you think George was gonna go that way with cloning and do the rapid clones? Like they were pretty much there within 1 year?
You know, the only reason I would say yes, I don't think so, but so with the sequels, they had this idea of putting a cloning facility, or some sort of weird laboratory on Jakku. I don't know if you ever read this.
Yeah.
It was in Chuck Wendig's book.
Yep.
What was it called again?
Aftermath.
Aftermath, yeah. He goes to, this is before the Phantom Menace, he goes to Jakku and he like observes this lab he has where they're doing a whole bunch of stuff. They never touched on it because I guess I don't know. But that's the only reason I would think that they would have that idea to bring it back from him. But they never really followed through on expanding that. And there was so much like interesting stuff they did with Snoke too, with his ring, that we never touched on either. Like his ring was made by had inscriptions of the Dwarti, which were these golden statues that were in Palpatine's office, which were given to him by Plagueis, all that he took. And the stone was actually from Vader's castle, which opened up a portal in the comics to like this other realm. So there's a lot of cool
like
stuff.
the moment stuff, right?
Yeah, they could have done a lot of cool
stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff. But the thing is, like,
George was done when Palpatine died. Like that was, he's not coming back. So anything he would have done after that was gonna be with Maul.
Yeah, I don't know that they would have done that. I'd love those stories though. The Outbound Flight stuff is really cool. It's a good question. Yeah.
Next up, yes.
How do you guys feel about the world between worlds? Do you think they should explore that more to its absolute fullest? Or do you think you got to just get away from it because it possibly breaks a whole lot of the...
Time travel. Like, it just makes it cheap, you know? Like, the whole thing with Ahsoka, like, where she's alive because she got pulled out of a portal. I don't I don't buy it. I don't believe in it in Star Wars. I think it just makes moments too cheap.
I think you could use it in an interesting way, but you'd have to use it differently than it's currently being used. So like, there could be some reveal. Like, what if we watch this whole story and then we realized like it was just happening within a world between world or something? Like, there could be a cool way to do it. But yeah, I mean, I do think, so Dave doesn't see it as time travel, you know, which is weird, because it is.
It's like, you can't change events in there. It's like, well, you can.
Yeah, I think his argument is, if you did change anything, all of reality would be destroyed. Now, there's a possibility that what he's playing on is actually from the EU stuff with the Celestials and the portals that were made across the universe by, I forget, it was like the ones basically in some of their progeny that had created those portals. And so like there could have been something there. I actually still have this theory that Dave is cooking in some of that old EU stuff. So like I think the Purgle could actually be Yuuzhan Vong scout ships, because some of the scout ships look similar, and there's some drawings that Dave did back in the day of Yuuzhan Vong scout ships that look exactly like the Purgle, actually. And then one of the other things that's interesting is when they were writing Abeloth in the books, Dave was creating the Mortis arc on the Clone Wars. And he actually worked with the authors outside of the scope of Lucasfilm, was just working with the authors, which is actually how a lot of the EU came together, because it wasn't like officially a canon. Some of these guys would literally just meet and talk and like we're doing, and then they'd write it and it was the EU. But anyway, he actually was creating something similar to the Mother as they were developing the Mother in those books. So then they all get together and they figure that out so that it works the same way. So technically speaking, Abeloth was created in part by Filoni when he was making Mortis. So there's a possibility that all of that stuff is something he wants to pull together in some wide grand vision, or maybe I'm just fanboy dreaming, I'm not sure.
Well, I think he's gonna bring her in to Peridia.
I think so too.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, I think so
Which
too.
would be neat.
That would be so cool. That'd be the coolest shit they have going on.
Yeah.
100%.
Oh well. Anybody else? Okay, yeah.
Have you played the Bounty Hunter game by chance?
The Bounty Hunter game.
The Django one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
It's like Xbox 360 or something, right?
It's the original Xbox.
Yeah.
Where I
The original Xbox.
What do you think would be the best way to go about doing a Bounty Hunter TV show? If you were
Not like Book of Boba Fett.
Episode 1 of season 1 of Mando.
Yeah, that's a pretty good one. That's pretty good.
Cool.
Doesn't it seem like a no-brainer to do the Bounty Hunter shows? And like, doesn't it also seem like a no-brainer to like do the best one as he was?
It's a no-brainer, but they have no brain over there.
Dude, do season 2 of Boba, and he's like, fuck respect! And then he just like goes nuts, dude. Like, come on, man.
And at the end of it, he's like, I don't think I'm cut out for this life. It's like,
Yeah, dude.
all right, dude. Whatever.
Yeah, no, I definitely think you're right, though. That would be cool.
Theory is probably the last person on earth who's going to enjoy this type of surprise, but it is his birthday today, and we did get some cupcakes. I know they're a little bit dingy, they're not the most special thing in the world, but we had to do what we had to do with the time that we had and the places we had to work with. He's doing a panel right now, so he has no idea what's going on. I'm going to wait for him to wrap up. Hopefully I can get the crowd to sing happy birthday, and if they do, for the first time ever, we will see an authentic, happy smile from that man.
You better shed a tear.
If he doesn't cry, I'm gonna be pissed.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Theory. Happy birthday to you.
Theory, how would you describe the experience when you worked with Roger Christensen for the Lightsaber
Oh,
series?
dude, surreal. Yeah, you should see the one we're making now. It's a rendition of Vader's. It's pretty cool. Working with him is, I mean, geez, it's literally a dream. Like the guy who created the lightsaber. I mean, that's and he trusts me to like carry his baby. Like it's just really cool to talk to him. We have a lot of like off-camera conversations, and it's interesting to be able to talk to these people like Nick Gillard, who's like my friend now. We just like shoot the shit. It's very, very interesting, to say the least. That's the best word I can come up with for it, but here we are. It's cool. Yep.
Any ideas on doing like a lightsaber choreography contest?
Yeah, no, I'm going to be announcing one very soon, actually. The first prize will be 10 grand, second will be 5, and the third will be 2.5, and that'll be online. So anybody can join, anyone
Nice.
can enter. It'll be just a cool fan film choreography sort of thing. I've yet to announce that, and the judges will be myself and Nick Gillard. So it'll be cool.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be good.
I'm gonna twirl that thing.
But he's very strict with how he judges. Oh yes, it's gonna be tough.
Do you feel that with the introduction of more like survivors of Order 66, like Cal and Phelan, do you feel like that's kind of lessening the impact of Order 66 and like Vader like going up and down? Do you feel like it's kind of
A little bit, yeah. Vader's gonna have to kill them all. That's the only way it's gonna like be legit, kind of like how it was when the Force Unleashed books and games were coming out. But besides that, I like those two characters. So for me, I'm like, all right, they're interesting. But anything more than that, I think it's a little much.
Yeah, to me, it's like a fine line because you definitely, like, you're right, but also there's zero tension if there aren't at least some out there. If the Inquisitory doesn't matter, if Vader's not hunting, then it doesn't matter. So there has to be some of them to drive that tension, right? So it's a fine line, though. Yeah, maybe they're going a little too much. I don't know.
See what happens, dude. Yeah. One more, and we'll
Look at this guy over there.
Do you want to do blasters too, theory sabers, or just sabers?
Right now, we're just focused on sabers. I feel like we're just pushing it really fast and as far as we can with the technology of what we're doing and what we're going to do. That we don't want to, diversify too much into some other sort of thing. And we feel like sabers is where we want to really own, and then move on to other stuff eventually. But that's what I really want to do well.
You got one coming that is going to extend the blade?
No comment. But thank you guys for making this birthday amazing. Thanks for making this panel amazing. Without you guys, like I said, we wouldn't be here. So thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you very much.
And we'll be at my booth right now for a little bit if you guys want to come there and hang out or anything. And then we're going to go get dinner and shoot more vlogs.
Oh, yeah. That was fun.